All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this month's NCDEA Professional Development Webinar Series. I just want to let you know this recording, along with all of our past webinars, can be found on our YouTube channel at National Conservation District EA, or you can find the link on our website at ncdea.us. Also, make sure to visit our website to find training opportunities and other ways to get involved at the regional and national levels. So hopefully you are visiting our website. Today, we'd like to welcome Brandy Myers of the North Carolina Department of Ag, Soil and Water Division and Celia Miller of Madison County SWCD in Mississippi. They will discuss how youth and adults learn differently and help you discover techniques to tailor your communications and presentations to each audience's needs. If you have any questions during the presentations, we have a Q&A box. Just type your question in there and we will cover those at the end of both presentations. Without further ado, thank you, ladies, for joining us today. And I will turn it over to Celia for our first presentation.
Okay, just FYI, this is out of my comfort zone so bad, y'all just have no idea. I am old school, so I don't do a lot of this tech stuff. So I've drafted someone from our commission office to come and help me set this up and make all sure the buttons and stuff work. I am the Information and Education Specialist for Madison County Soil and Water Conservation District. And my job is to go and teach all the school kids or anybody about how to conserve and protect your natural resources. Now, communication is hard for some people, but you got to find the right tool that you need in order for you to use. So when I first took over this position, because I started as a clerk, I wanted to know, how do I need to communicate with my teachers in order for them to need our services? And so I just started typing up a letter, trying to give them all the information that we have available. Oh, let's do this. And so I came up with, the best way that I have found is by word of mouth. A lot of my teachers that I communicate with, if they get ready to retire or if they move to a different school or their daughters are now teaching, a lot of times most of my communication or them finding out about me is done by word of mouth. People in your church know what you do, or people in your community know what you do. So finding somebody with an interest is talking to people is just a great way to find that extra avenue that we let her. So what I did, I always try and send a letter. My target goal is usually 1st through 6th grade. And so I will send a letter to at least one of those teachers in each of those grades at each of the different schools that we have here in Madison County, explaining what we have to offer, that it is a free to them, including all materials, and they are so excited when you say free. And so I keep sending them letters to keep the line of communication going. But my biggest thing to them is making sure that you thank them. They have a lot on their plate. So the more you appreciate them, the more that they think that you're on their team and that you want to do what they do. What to do when teachers show interest in my programs is that I will send them this letter. In this letter that they have, it tells them about what we do and that we're excited that they want to be a part of our programs. So I send them this letter, and then I will, in this letter, there is each one of these programs that is available for me to teach to their students. We offer this to, if you have 3rd grade that has 5 classes in that 3rd grade, each one of those grades gets 30 minutes of my time. Now, a lot of the classes that I have, or a lot of schools that we have at least 11 to 12 classes in that one grade. So during that time frame, we may have to double up those classes because the teachers have to complete their day with some of the educational activities that they have to do. So we will double up on that. And I am able to do that, to do them. So what I like to let them know is that I will be connecting with them soon concerning a schedule. And right before school starts, I email the teachers a letter giving them a summary of all the programs, ask them to choose 2 possible days of the week for me. Now, I have to make sure that I save a date to get all my other work done. Most of these programs that these teachers like to have in talking back and forth with them is they only like to give you a half a day so that they can finish the rest of the day. So I try and work with them as close to their schedule as they need. So when they communicate with me that they've got 2 days to choose from, that really works in planning my schedule because I do these schools every other month. So once they pick a date and it works in my schedule and their schedule, that's their Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for the rest of the year that they will do. These are a couple of letters that I send out to them. I got it backwards on here. So the letter on the right is the first one that I send out. And then the letter on the left is actually telling them what days that I will be coming, their dates, and the activity that we will be doing for them. They like to know things ahead of time. And when you are working with these teachers, stuff just comes up all the time. So after setting the dates and send out a schedule along with the program dates, I try to adjust around their fall breaks, their holidays, and I even have to work around my days that I am not in the office or I've got other programs scheduled. My thing for you to do is to always be flexible and always be thankful for them, because if you are appreciative of them, they in turn are appreciative of you. It's like when you go into their schools, you are a big fish in their little pond of people. And so you want to make these teachers happy. If you make these teachers happy and communicating with them on things that are going on in their classroom or things that you have available, they are just so excited. But the big thing is to be flexible with them. They'll have some stuff that comes up, school pictures. They'll have just odds and ends that will come up that you have to adjust. And as long as you're available and communicating with them that you can make these changes to what they have to do, they're excited and they'll invite you back anytime. So now that we've got some happy teachers, let's move on to see how we work in the classroom. Classroom communication matters more than you think. Y'all, and this is hard for me because I can't see y'all smiling faces to see if, okay, she's enjoying this, we're interested in this. So make sure you let the District Employees Association know that when you're watching these webinars, what you like in these things. So that will help them. Communicating with them will help them see more ideas or more things that you need to see. So communicating matters more than you think in the classroom. You have a couple. Practice active listening. Now, when you're in a classroom with 30 kids, they're all talking at the same time and they all want every bit of your attention. So you have to adjust your thinking to them to make sure that you try and hear what they have to say. If they're talking when you're talking, you have to stop the class. If they have something to say, you just politely say, hold on, let me finish, and then I will come back to you. Use clear and purposeful language. You've got to adjust your language thoughts in the grades that you're doing, whether it's first grade, you have to use smaller words or words that they may know, and then adjust as you go up into the grades. You can use more technical terms when you go up to the day. If you use technical terms, you just make sure that you explain what that technical term is, and then they have a new vocabulary word at the end of the day. Adapt communication to learning styles is I myself am a visual learner. I like to do hands-on stuff with my kids. I like to use my hands when I'm talking. And so you want to make sure that you have different learning styles. Make sure you have eye contact with these students. Make sure you address them. Even if you don't know their name, it's friend. And once you call them your friend, they become your friend. And they think you're the greatest thing ever. So adapt to different learning styles, reading, visual aids, all kind of things, hands-on activities for them is the best thing. And encourage the students to have a voice. Encourage the students to ask questions. Now, during your presentation, they want to stop you and ask, well, you've only got an allotted amount of time in there. So you say, just hold on to your question and we will get it at the very, very end. Respect is my biggest thing that I have in my classroom. I'm old school. I expect them to respect me, and then I will respect them. When I'm addressing these students, I make sure that I address them as yes, sir, and yes, ma'am. If some students are not listening to me and disrupting the classroom, I address them as young man and young lady. If they're talking while I'm talking, I just hush until they get their eyes on me. A lot of times your teachers, while you're in the classroom talking and teaching these students, they're trying to do something else. They're trying to do all they can in such a short amount of time. So there's many times that they're actually not listening to your program, but they're still keeping their eye on their classrooms. I always like to ask my students at the first of the year when I go in there, and I said that each time that I come in there, I bring a box, and in that box is a lesson and a lot of fun. And I ask these students, which would you rather have? Would you rather have a great big lesson and a little bit of fun, or would you like to have a little bitty lesson and a lot of fun? And of course, they say a lot of fun, but I let them know that with a lot of fun comes responsibility for them. They have to keep their hands to themselves. They cannot be talking to their neighbor, and they have to have their eyes and ears on me so that they can pay attention and learn stuff. So another one of those things is moving around the room. If you stand in one spot, these kids just I like to say a moving target. They like to watch wherever you go, because when you move across the classroom, you make eye contact with these students, then they think you're talking just to them. And they're so excited about that. You can, you've got another child over here that's being disruptive. You can give them what my grandma used to call the stink eye. And that once you give them that eye contact and notice that it is a different than a happy face contact, they'll learn to respect you and know that they have to do this in the classroom. So once you've gotten through all of those details of that classroom, what you will actually have will be a classroom catch of the day. These are just some of the students that that we have taken pictures of, that have had a great time doing the activities that we do. Pollination, habitat, fur. This is one of my favorite ones, which is a nature detective. And these kids absolutely love to see me come. They actually, outside of the classroom, if they see me out somewhere, then what they'll do is they'll run up and give me a hug. And because I teach so many, I have to ask them, okay, remind me what school you were from. And then they'll tell you, well, you've got their parents who come up like, who are you hugging? Well, then that's another line of communication with that a parent that, hey, I am Celia Miller with Madison County Soil and Water. I come to their school and teach them about natural resources, how to conserve and protect them. So they love that. Once their parents meet you, that is a whole different line of communications there. They may have something that they need you to come with. This is another one of my favorite things is Read Across America that we do. And then we have started this year our farmers markets that we do, and I have really enjoyed those, opened up a line of communication to a whole different area and that we do. And then we also do a youth camp here, and we have students who come and we have a farm to table cook off. Some of these kids have never seen a knife, much less any of these vegetables. So with these students, I have to have a higher respect for them because they're older. They don't like to be referred to as kids or students, but I will treat these kids as first through sixth grade if they're being disrespectful. But once again, as long as you respect them, that they respect you. Okay, so that's about the end of my spiel. I can help you in any way, not to reinvent the wheel. If I've got anything that you need, I'll be more than happy to share. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Celia. I am gonna get my presentation going, but I think you gave a lot of great photos and a lot of great points on your way of communicating with students and sort of commanding that attention in your classroom. I think that's really helpful. And I actually think you gave me a great segue into kind of talking about the adult side of education. So I'm going to share my screen. All right, friends, I think it's buffering. Okay, great. So while you have a second, I would really love it if you're on a computer, to take out your cell phone, scan that QR code, and put something into this Canva chat. I really love interactive presentations, and I needed a chat function, so this is what we're working with today. So I'll give you guys just a minute so that you can get this set up if you guys want to interact with me today. I promise I will keep it super fun. While you guys are doing that and putting some of your comments in there, um, and hopefully the comments will show up. We'll see. My name is Brandy Myers, and oh, perfect. Awesome. This is great. My name is Brandy Myers, and I am the training coordinator in North Carolina for the state agency partner underneath our Department of Ag within the Division of Soil and Water Conservation. I've been in this role for about 2 years now, and I got to be a regional coordinator before that. I do want to mention before I dive into the content that I want to talk with you guys about today is that while I would love to give you guys tips and tricks on working with educators, I want to also kind of mention that in terms of adult education for soil and water districts, we are doing so many type of outreach strategies. We're educating landowners, we're hosting community workshops, we are presenting information to our commissioners and county managers. We are supporting learning objectives for new district staff or new board supervisors, creating content or programming, maybe for a training or a DEA conference that gets held in your state. So there are so many ways of cultivating learning for soil and water districts that I really want to spend more time on us reflecting on how we show up in the education space and what that means for navigating adult education. And I'm a bit of a talker, so I have a little timer right here. So hopefully I stay on task. Okay, so a little bit about what we're going to do today. We are going to talk a little bit about my story in teaching adults, which is primarily through the training program at the Division of Soil and Water Conservation. We're going to talk about some factors in adult learning theory, some common principles for adult learning. We're going to talk about how we show up in terms of education for adults. And then I also want to give you some of kind of my key learning points at this point. You will see a common theme across this presentation, which is my values. I am a very values-based person. And so I don't know if there are any Brene Brown fans in the house. If there is, please put them in the chat because I'm a huge Brene Brown fan. But in her Dare to Lead book, there is a whole activity about identifying your values. And I actually have a link. I will put it in the chat when I get a chance, or maybe Eric can put it in the chat in the Q&A. I'm not sure how people can see that or not, but I think it's really important for us to identify our values. That way, if we step out of what our goals and initiatives are, then we can circle back to those things that are important. So for me, my values of curiosity and connection stem into my personal and professional life, and it has definitely impacted how I show up in terms of adult education. So, how did I even get here? When I applied for the training coordinator job within our state agency, it was really more about hosting events for district staff, for local soil and water district staff, and kind of just like piecing together events, piecing together people who are going to speak in front of them. There wasn't really a lot of push for things like instructional design or creating curriculum. Those weren't really things that I navigated until I started being in the trainings and I started thinking like, well, what if we did this? Or there's got to be a better way to do this. And so naturally, my curiosity, which is one of my values, led me into this a sense of job crafting. So I have basically at this point turned my career into basically what I enjoy doing. So I have taken the work that I need to do to help support soil and water districts and really tried to compile some ideas around adult learning theories, really problem solving and showing that district staff you actually, we can use a training platform to solve the things that are important for us, to collaborate as a group and have lots of interactive group learning and group discussions and communication. And then also, I've been really passionate about mentoring for most of my life. And so I've really tried to also bring that into the space of adult education. So, as far as adult learning goes, there are kind of three main buckets that I like to think of in terms of what influences the theories around adult learning. And those tend to be humanistic, neuroscience, and psychology. So, when we say humanistic, that means that we're thinking about, human experiences and what a person needs in order to learn something. Neuroscience, meaning, how does our brain remember and retain information? I mean, how many times have you had someone tell you, like, oh, I can't learn anything anymore, I'm too old? A, that is so not true. And B, but we have that perception sometimes that like our brain stops learning. And so what does that actually mean? And how can we actually train the brain so that we can learn and remember more frequently? And then also psychology. What motivates somebody to learn, and how do cognitive processes affect the learning classroom? So I want to take a second and I want you to put in the chat, how do some of these viewpoints vary from how children learn? So I want to give you guys just a couple of minutes to put some ideas in the chat, and I'm going to scroll this bad boy. Oh, okay, perfect. It's up at the top. So, Celia just talked a little bit about how children learn and her dynamics of working with children. So, how do some of these concepts around humanistic approaches, neuroscience, or psychology, how does it vary? And there is no wrong answers in this space. This is a discussion and a reflection. I'm going to give you guys just a little bit more seconds, and it could be buffering on my end. But the whole point is that adult education is not finite. It's very like tangible in the sense of like it's very interdisciplinary when it comes to communication and collaboration. It's really important that we don't think of it as a one-track process, that we take different aspects of our own lives and turn that into the type of adult education settings that we want to see. Someone had said children tend to be more open to learn more things outside of their comfort zone. I love that. So that might change how their motivations work. It's harder for adults to open up. They need more time to become open to learning. Right. Like that could be due to psychological factors of hard educational and learning environments. Children's brains are still growing and adult brains are mature. Kids want to learn all the things, and adults have learned things over time and to get to the point where they're set in their ways and don't want to learn new things. I love this aspect because children's brains, that is 100% right. They're like sponges. Like think about when you were a child and like you had a teacher or a parent in front of you and they're telling you something, you're taking that as truth, right? Like they've told you this thing and that is so correct. Like you know no other way as a child. But then as you get in as an adult, you've had all these life experiences. So we filter all the information and things that we're learning through our brain based on everything we've learned that far. And the brain does that so incredibly fast, but I think it's such a useful tool, which makes it more dynamic when it comes to actually educating adults. Perfect. Sometimes we forget to be open to new things, more of an equal partnerships, and adults have specific goals. You guys are putting some really, really great information in here, and I love that. You guys keep that coming. So now I want us to redirect the question just a smidge. What are some factors that influence your learning experience as an adult? So, what are things that you consider before you decide, I want to engage with some new material or I want to learn this new thing? What are some things you might consider? Just gut instinct, you know, instinct responses. Is it worth my time and energy? 1,000%. Cost? Yep. Personal interest? Am I ready to learn this new thing? Are they presenting material that's in my learning style? I love that. Is it going to help me? What is the other person's reputation? Correct. So the point to this is that adults, we take on a value of perspectives on our experience before we engage in something. So this could be our prior experiences, working, non-working, learning, relationships. This could be motivation, but behind, conflicting priorities. Is this thing more important than this thing that I've got to prioritize? Do I have the brain capacity and space to remember the things I'm going to do? Will I enjoy it? Is the environment set in a way that I like it? Do I like how the person speaks? Do I like how they interact? So we take in a lot of considerations. It's not just hey, you should go to this training or hey, you should do this event. There's a lot of things that we have to sift through in our brains to really end up there in the long haul. Oops. I might. There we go. Oh, I think I might have. Nope, that was right. Perfect. Sorry, guys. All right, so here are some common principles in adult learning theories. And I do just want to quickly go through each of these. This is not an exclusive list, but these are just a couple that I've really kind of leaned into in the last, several years. So, motivation. Adults are more likely to engage in learning when they understand its relevance and see a clear connection to their personal or professional goals. Experiential learning. Adults build knowledge through experiences, using practice and real-world application to deepen their understanding. Reflection. Taking time to think about experiences and new information helps learners make meaning and apply what they've learned. Group facilitation and group learning. Learning is often enhanced through discussions, collaboration, and a skilled facilitation that encourage participation and knowledge sharing. So, meaning us learning from others can actually give us a more encouraged sense from that educational point. Memory retention. Learning is strengthened when information is revisited, practiced, and connected to prior knowledge or experiences. Self-directed learning. Adults often take responsibility for their own learning by identifying needs, setting goals, and seeking opportunities for growth. I will say, self-directed learning, I am learning more and more about how adults engage in this, and I think that this is fantastic and fascinating to me. I'm actually more or less self-taught in terms of adult learning. And so I mostly took it upon myself to learn, and I didn't know that there was actually a name for that, but it is called self-directed learning. And it's kind of sparked this curiosity and this interest so much so that I've actually decided to pursue higher education in the realm of training and development focused on adult learning. So I do think that self-directed learning is something that is a really powerful tool that all of us should keep in our back pockets because we just follow our own interests. Objectives and outcomes. Setting clear expectations and outcomes can provide direction for learning and help measure whether the desired knowledge or skills have been achieved. And then last but certainly not least, this one is a really dynamic one, transformative learning. Learning can challenge existing assumptions and lead to new perspective, ultimately influencing how individuals think and act. So we're talking about sort of really deep-seated changes when it comes to things like transformative learning. Okay, so back to the chat, my friends. What is your preferred learning method? How do you like to learn something new? So that's not necessarily anything that has to do with the previous slide, but I'm curious for what kind of learning methods do you look for when you're deciding whether to attend a training or do something or not? Hands-on. Oh, and we got some thumbs up on that one. Activities, experiential learning. I love that. We have a visual learner, hands-on, hands-on. Yep. Collaborative learning, so like learning in the space of other people and discussion. Something that's applicable to everyday tasks. I love that. Anything but a lecture. I am so in that boat, it is not even funny. Visual, great. Yeah. So we all learn a little bit differently, and we can't possibly go towards every single one of these styles. But in a lot of ways, there are so many different types of methods. Some people prefer reading manuals. Some people like ideas of like job shadowing or observing others. Some people like hands-on and experimentation, maybe group discussions, maybe video demonstrations, something that they can go back and watch at a later date. Some folks like instructor-led and webinar formats. They find those most applicable. Some people like self-paced, like learning modules through learning management systems. Some like trial and error. I'm a big trial and error fan. Some people just like to give the thing a new try. And then some people like case studies and real-world examples. So there's a plethora of different ways that we can integrate various learning methods into our soil and water trainings and our trainings for our landowners. One component that I do want to spend just a moment talking about is a Zen inventory education styles. And I also will put these in the chat, or we'll get these to Eric so that you guys can also take this. But I found this really actually helpful. So this is a very simple methodology of sort of detecting what your preference is as far as education styles. So the idea is that you use this information to help you understand what your preferences are and how you educate others. But in a lot of ways, you'll find that you tend to lean towards how you want to educate others based on how you yourself actually prefers to learn. So let's walk through each of these just real briefly. So progressive. This type of educator or learner encourages problem solving, experiential learning, and practical applications. A humanistic education style centers on personal growth, self-direction, and the learner's potential. Behaviorists focus on measurable outcomes, skill development, and observable changes in behavior. So, a lot of times, if you ever heard of an ADDIE model or sort of setting your goals and objectives and outcomes, sort of like a task list oriented and evaluation phase, that's a behaviorist type of style. Liberal tends to emphasize the transmission of knowledge and development of intellectual abilities. So I think of liberal education styles as those people who like to read a manual. Like they would prefer written text and to have all the resources at their fingertips so that they can integrate with the information. Um, and so that is legitimately they might prefer a more lecture-based type of style. And then radical is the last one. This one views education as a means for social awareness, empowerment, and transformation. So a lot of times with a radical viewpoint, we are considering things that happen within our societies, within our cultures, and we are putting that into our educational content. Now, I do want to say that liberal and radical, a lot of times, or even progressive, tend to be terms that we use in a political space, and these have no correlation to anything politically related. I know it's kind of hard to separate those out, but I just want you to know that there is no correlation between the terminology in that sense. Um, so I'm curious, just based on what I said, and most of you probably have not taken this inventory. Do you have a philosophy, one of these five, that you think most closely reflects your current approach to teaching or training? And a good guess might be the way that you like to learn. So if one of these spoke to you as a learner, it might be the way that you also prefer to educate. Behaviorist? Yes. I am so like you want to set the goal and the objective and then see if you reach those outcome and hit milestones. Yes, I am so a behaviorist as well. Behaviorist? Perfect. I actually took this test recently and I ended up, my highest was in progressive. So I really apparently like to problem solve, which felt very true to me. And then my second highest was behaviorist, which also felt very true. Yes, Shannon, progressive. That totally makes sense. Um, I will say what was really interesting for me though is I think as far as my personal education style, I worked the hardest in terms of bridging the gap for me from a humanist place, understanding and sort of looking at the learner and understanding their experience with the learning content. And while I spend the most amount of time probably trying to understand that, it certainly did not score the highest for me. So that tells me that while I might have more neuro pathways dedicated to progressive and behaviorist, that doesn't mean that I can't still learn to incorporate these other techniques or that I'm already doing them. Perfect. I love that you guys are putting stuff in the chat. It makes me so happy. Okay. So, another chat item. How can adult learning theory or education styles help you reach your adult audience? So, this is in reference to the slide before, and I'll just kind of go back to it. How can adult learning theory or education styles help you reach your adult audiences? So if you connected with one of these styles, how can you use that potentially as a superpower? Or maybe how can you use that awareness to help bridge a gap in a way that you think would be really meaningful? Radical knowing your audience and their background. I think that's very helpful. And that's also something I think Celia said, knowing who you're speaking to and knowing what kind of cultures and social cues are at play with an audience group is, I think, extremely important. So understanding their background and tying it into their culture and their experiences, I think is really helpful. So I love that. Keeping other learning styles in mind. Yeah, so being patient because we definitely don't all fit in the same box. And so I honestly when I did this learning style, I will tell you that I have tried to steer away so much from dense slide decks with a lot of text or overly written text like standard operating procedures or manuals. I have really just tried so hard to avoid those like the plague until I realized like man, like there are people that learn like that. Like maybe not as many of us as adults enjoy learning that way, but that doesn't mean that there aren't folks that learn that way. So I do think that it brought in a self-reflection that I was like, there are other ways to be adaptive and other learning styles to keep in mind. Knowing that everyone is different. Yes, exactly. If someone isn't responding how you wished, you can gauge better how to help. Exactly. I think that's perfect. And then thinking about different leadership styles that are interactive with learning styles and keeping those. I like that. There is, I think, a large crossover between how we show up as leaders, how we show up in our own personal lives, and how we show up in terms of education. I think it really speaks a lot of times to our values and how we just in general want to show up in the world and show a sense of belonging. But I think if you could make this connective tissue between all of those, then I think you will sort of find your power as an educator. So I do have some key takeaways for you as we start nearing the end of my presentation. This has been so fun. I've loved this. The first thing I want to say is being intentional is really important. And I think Celia also did a great job of mentioning the intentionality piece and preparation. I think that the low-hanging fruit is sometimes we have a lot of good information in our brain and we might be a subject matter expert on something very specific. And it might feel like the easy way is to just sort of brain dump all of our thoughts onto somebody else and call that education. And in some contexts, like maybe mentoring or job shadowing, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But I do think there is a lot more fruitful endeavors if you give it time and really try to be intentional about what you want learners to get out of the curriculum or how you want to show up as an educator. I do think being intentional matters, and the more intentional you are, I think the better the programming will be, and that's from my own perspective as well. The second piece that I want to really mention is being reflective. Just as you guys have done in the chat today, and hopefully you did even if you weren't involved in our chat conversation, is being reflective as an educator. We can't really dive in to the core of how we show up in education and lead the way that we want to without real curiosity. And I don't believe that we can truly engage in curiosity for ourselves unless we know where we're at and kind of where we've been. So I do think reflecting on who we are in a wholesome sort of way, and then also reflecting on how we show up as educators, how we like to learn, and how the people that we are educating and teaching, how they actually are learning, can be really helpful in the whole process. And then lastly, being courageous. Education is extremely vulnerable. I I would disagree with anyone who would disagree with that statement. I think that around vulnerability and being creative is one of the hardest things that we do. And I think it takes really strong, courageous people to try new things and to try new lesson plans and mess something up and then try it again or, do something out of the box thinking. So be courageous. It's a lot more fun. You'll find a lot more of yourself, and I think it'll be a much more fruitful endeavor. And the more that we practice showing up in this way, the easier it will become. Will it ever be easy per se? Probably not, but I think it does get easier. And lastly, I just want to tell you that small changes in how we teach can have a lasting impact on how adults learn. So I just want to thank you guys for having me here today. I hope you learned a thing or two. I hope you'll continue to reflect on your own learning styles and education styles and maybe think of a new way or two to show up in that space. If you ever need anything from me, feel free to check out the training website or send me an email. I am available to you, even if you want to brainstorm something. I just really enjoy speaking with others about adult education. So thank you guys for your time, and I think we have some time for questions, so I'll turn it over to Eric.
Great. Well, first of all, thank you, ladies. Both did an excellent job, and I think there was a lot of information to unpack and to be able to sit and ruminate on for a little while as we look at how, we go out and we interact with the people in our community and put our education programs together. Um, just as a reminder, this webinar is being recorded and will show up on our YouTube page and the link on our website, as well as both Celia and Brandy's presentations from today. There will be links to those as well. Please give us a few days to do that. Turnaround time usually takes a little bit, so please give us some grace so we can get them on there. But check back to the website. We will definitely have the presentations there. We will also I know for sure in the YouTube page, we will have Brandy's links that I also shared in the chat box um, about the Zen inventory and things like that. We will include those as well, so you have access to those. So all of the information today will be provided to you in one of those two spaces. We do have I think, one question for right now, and a few comments. But if you do have questions, you can continue to put those on. But we're going to start first. This one is for you, Celia. First of all, thank you for your presentation. Do you visit a single classroom multiple times a year or just once? If multiple times a year, are you visiting every week at a certain time on a certain day? This person was just trying to decipher your scheduling discussion.
So it is the way I work that is that they are, I don't know if y'all can see this, not quite sure. So I fill out a calendar Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then they get to pick one of these 2 days. I see these students, same grade, same class, every other month. Before COVID hit, I was in their classroom every month, but now it's every other month. And so with that, these teachers pick 2 days, a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. They pick options of, say, I want Tuesday or Thursday. And from that day, then I pick one of those 2 days that will fit into my schedule. I have found that a lot of teachers will pick the same days. So if I do every other month, I can get them the day that they want and just do this group this month and then this group the next month. I hope that answered your question.
Another question, again for you, Celia. How long did it take you to garner that interest level?
I started working here as a clerk, and then I moved into the information and education thing. And I had some friends who were teachers. And then once I started with someone I knew, she moved to a different school. So I have had most of these schools that I'm working with for about 20 years. Me and my tech guy were just talking about, I have had his little brothers and sisters, and they're 30 now. So I've had those when in class, and they actually remember what we do. So we do serve a purpose and are a very good reminder of conservation as they get older.
Same person also followed up with, this has been my goal for 2 years, and I follow your introductory steps, and I'm still struggling. So do you have any words of encouragement? Or Brandy, you might chime in here too. Are there any words of encouragement for those folks who are finding it difficult to get into the schools, at any level and engaging with those students?
It's extremely hard nowadays to get in because of, I don't know if y'all have state testing. where you may live, but we have state testing and they have to teach to that test. So getting into the schools is a hard thing, but you need to find somebody you need to find a teacher in your community, maybe somebody at your church knows, maybe we call them commissioners here, is finding somebody with one small interest in there. If you get your foot in that door, contact a principal, contact your local superintendent and say, this is what we have to offer you for free. Free is the key word here, for free, to help add an additional to some of the things that you have to teach on testing. You can find that some of the verbiage that you teach to them about natural resources is also included on a lot of the tests, that the achievement tests, state testing that they have to do.
I think I would add to that in terms of just like, teachers are obviously adults, even though they're educating, younger students in this context, that if you can kind of take what Celia is saying and leverage this like problem solving mechanism, like I can help support you in teaching this thing. Your students aren't understanding this dynamic of natural resources, but I have a hands-on lesson where they can help commit it to memory. So if you can maybe help make their jobs easier and help commit some of the things they're trying to teach to memory, from what you kind of have in your back pocket, then maybe by leveraging what they need, that'll help encourage them to get you in there.
Yeah, those are excellent points. One thing that I would just chime in very quickly is if you have access to your state list of state standards that every grade level has to meet, and in every category, and you can match up your lessons and say, I'm hitting these state standards, and have that available to your educators, that helps. If they can, because again, as Celia said, teachers are under a great amount of pressure to prep their students for certain examinations. And if you can say, my lesson is going to help reinforce this standard, and this standard, they're more likely to say yes, because they know that, okay, these are getting taught today. These are getting reinforced just in a different lens, just in a different way. So if you can, if you can get a hold of those and tailor your overviews or your list of objectives and outcomes and say, hey, I'm going to be hitting these, just another piece of that puzzle. But both of these ladies gave some great advice on how to, make end ways into getting into those classrooms. And, sometimes it takes a change in administration. It takes a different principal. There's lots of, dominoes that need to fall to get in, but just keep at it. I think both of them gave some very encouraging remarks. Here's a suggestion, another suggestion from one of our watchers. Offer to come in when they need a substitute. That might be a little more on the fly. You just have to be ready to go if that happens, but another option. Another comment, youth educator here, or question, what is the favorite lesson you teach? And do you use PowerPoints for the lesson position of your 30-minute period with an activity to follow?
I have two favorite things that I like to teach. Very first one is nature detective. And so it is using little magnifying glass, jeweler's loops is what it's using. And that I take them into the class with things that I have found out in nature. I have a box full of bugs that they get to look at and notice the difference between looking at it with their natural eye and then looking at it with a magnifying glass. I always do 30-minute lessons, but it's 15 minutes of lesson and 15 minutes of fun. That is one of my favorite one. Well, maybe I got three. Okay, sorry. The other one is my farm to table. I teach them, I bring in how it looks growing in the field, not what it looks like on their plate, and then go through each one of the crops that they have, how they find it in their food they eat, And then we discuss how many farmers it takes to like make a hamburger. And then the other one is who planted me. So I like to use all my kids as I can. So some kid will be a tree. We talk about squirrels, how they hide food to make sure that they have enough food in the wintertime. I don't do anything PowerPoint, anything taking that into the schools other than when I have one fourth grade class that they have to study. They talk about Mississippi history, and agriculture in Mississippi is the number one industry that we have. So I use a PowerPoint for that, and that is the only PowerPoint that I use for my teaching.
I will just say too, if you ever get the opportunity to see Celia do the Who Planted Me presentation, phenomenal, hilarious. I will just say it's a great tool. We had the opportunity to see her do that at NACD conference in San Antonio, and
Mhm.
it was great. So if you ever get a chance to see her do that, don't miss out on that opportunity. Brandy, did you have anything you wanted to add on that? Any lessons you like to teach? Um, I know that was directed more to youth, but
Yeah, I mean, I think my favorite lessons, I mean, I wouldn't say that I necessarily have anything specific. I really like interaction and collaborative exercises. I like to hear people's different perspective on things. And so especially from adults, if they feel comfortable with opening up and speaking their truth to a group of people, then I find that really valuable. But mostly I really just from an educational perspective, I think adults are so interestingly dynamic that I really like to watch and observe how adults learn and what's sinking in and what's maybe they're confused on. So I think maybe I end up being a learner in that sense also. I just like to be observant. So
excellent. Thank you so much. Um, Unless somebody is furiously typing and adding something into the Q&A box, I don't see any more questions on here. Um, Once again, ladies, thank you so much for being with us during this webinar today. We appreciate you sharing your time and talents with us and your encouragement to, look at how we're presenting our education and, tailoring that to our audiences just a little bit better. For our participants today, thank you for joining us for this webinar. Hope you enjoyed it. Please make sure you share with your friends and colleagues the information, and number two, how much you enjoyed, and get them to join us on our next one. Again, these will be posted on our YouTube page as well as on our website, ncdea.us. And with that, thank you all and have a great rest of your day.